Hey there, welcome to the podcast. Today I've got another MVP world champion person with me on the podcast. It's Jeff Gear from TSR Concrete Coatings, also Revamp Companies. We'll talk about what the relation of those two things are. Jeff has a lot of success under his belt already. As you can see on the screen, not a super old man, so accomplished a lot at an early age. And we got a lot to learn here today. So, Jeff, why don't you give me the resume? I think you do something like 150 plus million in revenue total. Is that right?
Yeah, we finished in net business, net gross. We finished 158 million last year.
158. And this is a product of organic growth, acquisitions, a couple of different acquisition type strategies. We'll get into that in a minute. But how many total locations do you have? I think it's over 50.
Yeah. So we've got 44 concrete coating locations, and we've got 12 fence and deck locations. Actually, probably getting close to be 13.
Okay, so I'm going to just guess based on the fact that your original company, TSR Concrete Coatings, that that's your forte and where you really learned how to run the business.
Yeah. Well, so I actually used to be a police officer, and then when I left doing that 15 years ago, my first stop was actually at Erie home. So
Okay.
yeah, I worked with Rick Mosby at the Grand Rapids office, satellite location in Illinois, um, and so that's kind of how I got into home improvements. Answered an ad and interviewed with a guy at a Culver's location off the interstate. It's
Oh
kind of
my
crazy.
gosh. No, wait a second. Why did you get out of being a cop? What was the problem there?
Well, the police forces they want to be very black and white, and it's more of a gray area. I mean, I just not only that, you look at where things are at in the world today. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I would have stayed regardless. It's just not a job I would recommend to my kids. My whole family's police officers, and I really wanted to be a state cop. I was actually a city cop, but
Well,
back then they weren't hiring for the Illinois State Police.
I'm not a police officer, obviously, and it's not something that's in my family. I don't know that much about it, but during the 2020 era, when the police whole system was put under the microscope, I just remember looking at that and thinking, why on earth would anybody go into that profession? There is no win in some of these situations. Like, you do this, you're screwed. You do this, you're screwed. That's just not a
Oh,
good situation to be in.
yeah, there's definitely plenty of those scenarios, and I look back on it, and when you come from a family of police officers, you really don't think that there's anything else that you can do, right? Like it was like never a question that
I see. It's in
that I was
the
going to be
blood.
anything other than a cop. I'm like, I didn't even know you could be other things. You know, I'll be honest with you. At the time, I didn't know I could be a roofing salesman either. So that was that was kind of
Yeah,
new.
well, it seems to have worked out okay for you. So you got into remodeling. How long were you working for Erie before you went solo?
So I actually worked with Erie for about 3 years. Like I said, Rick was my manager under Pat Trumpeter and Randy Hamilton. Like nothing but respect for Randy and what those guys have built over there. And after 3 years, um, I went to go work with what I thought was my biggest competitor, uh, Chris Bowling and Homework Central HCI, and just kind of wanted to be a part of something a little bit more local and close to where I was. We didn't have an office out here. They run a lot of satellite rep locations. I think they've kind of gone away from that model a little bit these days, where they're actually putting real offices in. But I just wanted to be, part of something that was a little closer. Kind of got tired of working out of my house, and yeah, I mean that's just where I landed with Chris, and we did about $98 million in business together over 7 years, and um, we actually not only had the roofing business, but then we had the Kohler contract or the Kohler walk-in safety tub deal, and we split that up. I had that business, Home Forever Baths. He had Midwest Bath, and we actually both sold those companies to private equity as well. So
So,
renew what he bought mine.
so what were you doing with Erie? Were you in sales? Because I mean, it sounds like you've evolved from wherever you started to, running the whole show. Where did you start?
Yeah, I was a salesman doing stone coated steel roofs.
Oh, wow. Not the
Yeah.
easiest thing to jump into.
Well, the thing is that I didn't know any better, right? So all I did was follow the system and do exactly what Rick Mosby told me to do. And I went out on my very first lead. I sold the $26,000 stone coated steel roof, and I had never looked back since. I said, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life."
I've witnessed this in my life in different domains. Like this concept of beginner's luck, it's real. It's like, how do you explain the guy selling his first deal for $26,000 and just being like, "Hey, what's the problem here? This is easy."
No, that's honestly, it was like an epiphany. I just remember doing. I remember the exactly what the couple looks like. I remember the house. I know exactly where the house is at. I could go there today. I know exactly where it's at. You never forget the first one, right? And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I can do this every single day forever.
How much commission did you make on that sale?
It was probably like close to 10%, 8 to 10%, something like that.
So
So and that's 15 years ago. It's 2,500 bucks ish, something like that.
how much were you making as a police officer?
Not I funny story. I got my first check as a police officer. I think I was making like $37,500 a year or something like that. And I remember I got my first check and I took it to my patrol lieutenant and I said, I think they made a mistake. And he says, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, this is for 2 weeks, and it looks like they only gave me 1 week's worth of pay." And he was like, "No, no, that's right." And I go, "How much do I make?" Because I was so excited to be a cop, I never even asked him how much to get paid.
Yeah, so now you're making $2,500 on your first sales call, no threat of being shot or, anything like that. So that's an upgrade. So you worked there for a few years, got into the bath business, sold that. Is that when you decided to get into concrete coatings? How did you get into concrete coatings?
So actually, concrete coatings came along in end of 2016. I really just wanted my garage floor coated. I had bought a house and the floor had like this, kind of shitty epoxy on it.
Mhm.
And at the time, I had a Z06 Corvette, and I remember I backed the car into the garage the very first day I owned the house, and it has those big wide like 345 rear tires on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I backed it in and the tires were hot, and then I pulled it out the next day and it ripped the floor right off the concrete. So I was pretty upset about that. And I was like, well, I really had been looking at a product, looking at wanting to have something done. So I called like 10 companies and same old story, nobody comes out. I got like one guy to come out, and I'm like, I know I'm not the only person that wants this done, right? Like this is like a cool thing. And he said, yeah, it's gonna be like 10 grand. I have a pretty big garage. And he's like, and I said, okay. And then he never came back. And I was like, my best childhood friend, Tyler Russell, he wanted to come back from Arizona. He was being a deputy down in Mojave County. And he wanted to come home. And I said, dude, you don't need to come home and be a cop. Like, we can do this floor coating thing. Seems pretty easy.
Now, if I'm connecting the timeline dots, you've already had tremendous success. You've already sold to private equity and whatever that entails in terms of.
No, not quite. So I was actually still doing the bath and roofing thing with Chris at Get a Pro, is HCI Get a Pro, and I was still doing that. And then I was like, I wanted this floor done. I was like, it initially was just supposed to be like a job for Tyler, right? Like, so that way he didn't have to be a cop anymore. And then it evolved into $100 million business. So I
Well,
was
that's
actually,
kind of where I was going. You're a guy that had quite a bit of number one experience, but also real success under your belt in the industry, not coatings, but remodeling.
yeah,
And then you go to your buddy who's a cop who's probably looking at his check every 2 weeks, going, "Wow, is that 1 week's worth of pay or
yeah.
something?"
Honestly, we didn't care. We just wanted to do cool floors, and I'd already had success doing roofing in bathrooms, and I was like, I already have the formula. I know how to generate the leads. I know how to sell the lead. Like that wasn't a concern for me. I said, our business plan for the first year in 2017 was to do 550,000. Like that's all it was. Because
Yep.
I was very heavily focused on the bath business at the
Yep.
time. And I really just, wasn't looking to grow this coatings thing very big. And because I knew it would like overtake. Well, eventually it did. In 2019, I had to make a decision. on what we were going to do. So me and Chris ultimately end up parting ways on the bath business. We split our territory in half. I I actually didn't even work in our coatings business full time until 2020. January of 2020 is when I started doing it full time.
Because ostensibly you sold your bathroom business at the end of 2019.
No, actually, August of 2022. So then what I did is like I'm crazy, right? Like I've got the coatings thing rolling, and then we split the bath business apart. Now I've got the bath thing rolling on the side, and I realized I didn't want to make the same mistake where I had, I can't, my time can only go so much so far, right? So I got some partners, Alex, Mark, E Mark, and Tyler were partners in the bath business, and so there was four of us, you know, instead of just two. And then Emark and Alex actually, Alex really drove that bath business up to a $20 million company in 2 years.
20 in sales.
Yeah, 20 million in net sales for the bath business.
Okay, so the size and scope of that business was impressive in its own right, but it's a whole different ballgame than what you're doing now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So when you sold that business, $20 million, ostensibly EBITDA somewhere between 10 and 20%, hopefully closer to 20. Uh, so it was a nice exit, but not, a generational wealth kind of exit.
No, no, it was really I had made a decision that I don't want to be in emergency home improvement products anymore. Roofing and bathrooms are emergency products because when your bath leaks, it's kind of a big deal, Rick. And when your roof leaks, it's kind of a big deal. So I've made a personal choice not to do that. I've never once had a concrete coating emergency, not one time, and it's pretty fun to not have that.
Nobody's called you and said, "Hey, I just left my garage and my Corvette and your floor stuck to the wheels."
Well, even if they did, it's not an emergency that needs to be taken care of 4 hours ago, right? I've just made a point not to be involved in those type of products anymore. They pull you away at literally your kid's basketball game, Christmas, Thanksgiving. You know, you know how it is, man. At any given time, when things shouldn't go wrong, they ultimately do with those types of products. And I just every time it would rain, I would just sob a little bit on the inside because you just know it eventually something the phone's gonna ring the second it rains.
Okay, so sold that business in 2022. Meanwhile, you're starting the concrete coatings business in 2017. It sounds like it really starts cranking up pretty big in 2020, 2019, 2020 thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what were some milestones in that business? Like, did you have 5 million? Did you hit 10 million?
Yeah. So first year we did 2.2 million.
Out of the 550 you wanted, right?
Yeah, we did 2.2, and I kind of went, oh shit, we got something here. Not really what I was expecting. We did 2.2, and we weren't really trying a whole.
You found out that if you actually just returned phone calls and showed up to do the work that people wanted, that it was a successful formula.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's all we did. We just answered the phone, and we did some like home shows. Yeah, home shows were pretty big back then. I remember we'd go to a home show in Madison, Wisconsin. We get 230 leads. I couldn't talk Monday and Tuesday because I was generating so many leads. Home shows really aren't that way anymore. The same home show, this like a week ago at the same exact place, produced like 30 leads. They just
Mm.
you don't have the traffic anymore at those same type of events. But yeah, so we hit 2.2 the first year. The next year we doubled back and we hit 5 million. And then we did I think we did like 7 in the year 3, and then it really just kind of hit a rocket ship, and we went from like 7 to 12 to 20 to 23.
So what is that? I'm going to call that your core business. I know you got, we'll get into the acquisitions and the expansion, but the original, the OG TSR, what's that doing now?
Uh, all of coatings hit like 100 and something, just low hundreds, like 102 or 103 million last year for coatings. TSR itself is probably about 35 or 40 million of that.
Okay. Not nothing.
Yeah, yeah, just a little guy.
So before we get into the conversation about scaling and growing, let's talk about marketing. Clearly, you're an accomplished marketer. Sales probably would be high on your resume as well. But talk about marketing. You said that the home shows don't produce like they used to. What's kind of your go-to bread and butter lead
So
gen?
it's funny. I still have people in 2019 at qualified remodeler top 500. I gave a speech about social media and Facebook marketing, and it's crazy to think about 6 years ago how many people in that room weren't spending money on Facebook. At that time, I was probably spending 25 to $30,000 a month on social media. Our social media spend now is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and how much we spend on Facebook, Instagram, you know,
Per month?
Snapchat, TikTok, and uh, I think our goal is to always stay underneath of 12.5% and try to be even lower than that. But
So tell me about, so let's talk about your Facebook slash Instagram. Not that I want to ignore TikTok, but let's focus on that for a minute. One of the things that I hear people see and say, and that I've seen, is that okay, we're generating leads. You know, from my perspective, Facebook is a lot like television from the standpoint of you're watching TV for the programs, not for the ads. So anybody that happens to see an ad that they're interested in, now we're going back over to Facebook. They didn't go to Facebook to see a concrete coatings ad. So this it's a lower intent lead typically.
no, and I disagree with that. I would say, yeah, it's not maybe as good as a Google ad, right? A Google pay per click ad is
Yeah.
probably, or search ad is probably the best you can get, or local services ad. It doesn't get a whole lot easier than that from a set rate to a close rate. But one of the things I think is unique about what we do at Coatings is that we have a 100% want product. I've never met a single person who needed it. There's no need. There's zero need. I could have gotten away with my floor not looking good, but I don't need a new floor, right? And so I think that when you sell things like baths, roofing, windows, gutters, those are all need items, and so there's nothing flashy or cool or fun or sexy about those. So if you're interrupting my Facebook feed for those type of products, I agree. I'm really not that interested. I'm like, yeah, I kind of need it, but I don't want it. Where if I see a coatings ad, I'm like, that's badass. I like that. That's something I want.
So what percentage of all the leads that your company generates in the coatings arena, well, maybe decks and fences are slightly different, but from the coating standpoint are coming from social media spend?
Probably at least 35 to 40%.
Is it the biggest category?
Yeah, yeah, it would be.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you've got some kind of heroically awesome speed to lead situation with this.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Tell me about it.
So we use a CRM called Builder Prime, and they've been fantastic uh, to work with. What that program was when we first started using it to what it is today, and kind of the customizations and things that they've done for us has been pretty awesome because it allows us to keep everything in one platform versus, no, don't get me wrong, we do use Hatch, but we don't use Hatch in the way that other companies do, like go high level and those types of things. But lead comes in, it hits a landing page, they fill out their information, it goes into our CRM. The call center has 15 to 30 seconds to get on that. They contact it right away. They call it, it gets an email and it gets a text right away. We contact that lead 9 times within the first 48 hours.
Uh, I'm assuming if you get a hold of them, then they pop out of that
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah. Then they
Okay.
come out of the cycle. Yeah,
Okay. 9 times total, including email and text being separate touches, or nine
yeah.
texts
It's at
and nine
least it's at
emails?
least 8 calls. It's eight
Okay.
calls. Your chance to set that lead after the 9 times probably drops by like 70%.
Are you calling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or just during business hours?
7 to 8, 7 to 8. Oh, really 6 to 7 or 7 to 8.
So what if a lead comes in at 11 p.m., then what are you doing?
We
Call them
have
the
an
next day?
we have no yeah we have an AI that picks it up, and gets them to takes their information. We have an automated AI that sounds like a human that takes their information, lets them know somebody will call them back.
What's your set rate on Facebook leads?
It's about 35%.
Okay. And then what's your close rate on those?
Across the company, we have a 39 to 41% close rate. So what is, I don't think the net close rate really changes a whole lot between the sources once they're set. Like
Yeah.
the,
You're just
if
going to
anything,
set a whole lot more because that want versus need thing is kicking in no matter where the lead's coming from.
yeah, it's kind of inconsequential, right? Like it,
And I'm assuming that, especially with these Facebook leads, it's pretty much an exclusive lead. Like you're not competing against nine other guys typically.
there's some competition, but TSR was we've got 60,000 plus followers on our Facebook page, which I think is quite a lot whenever you consider who the bigger home improvement companies are uh, in the industry. I'm kind of curious to see where it's at today, but like our TSR page has a just like a massive following, right? So we've got 66,000 followers, over 936 reviews, and I really this year have made a big push to use our use our review platform to make sure that we're getting capturing all the 5-star reviews that we possibly can, not just on Facebook and Google, but also on the BBB.
What is your reviews platform?
So we actually made it in house. It's we call it Disrupt. We built
Are
it.
you going to be one of these guys that now goes out and starts selling that software as a service? And
I could. I don't really want to.
that's how half of the softwares in this industry started. Maybe
Yeah.
more than half.
So we actually built ours to replace Engage, and then it kind of evolved from there.
Okay. So talk to me about TikTok. Any particular things about TikTok or just basically Facebook but a different name?
Yeah, it's just basically Facebook, but a different name. I'd say the conversion rate's a little bit lower. The lead cost can be a little bit high on TikTok. I think that when I gave my speech back in 2019, we had just kind of started on Instagram as well. Um, you're, I'm pleasantly surprised with the because TikTok actually gives you a lot of data about the individual with the age range of the people viewing our videos. So I think that it's we were getting a lot of 50 plus. Honestly, I was kind of impressed that we were getting a lot of 50 plus viewers on TikTok because
I mean, hopefully the algorithm starts leaning into those after about 5 minutes.
yeah, and it's funny with the TikTok stuff. It's like almost instantly you turn the ads on. Facebook kind of has like this ramp up or build up period where TikTok is like Facebook but like 2013. Facebook didn't have all this nonsense that it has today with like getting an ad account and all the bullshit that it has, right? So TikTok is like that, but like the very beginning of Facebook. So as soon as you launch your ad account, it goes straight into the algorithm and it gets better and better every day. So I think that it's not where TikTok's at or it's not where Facebook's at, but I think that it will be in 5 to 6 years. And then it really comes down to what does your content creation look like? Are you making these 10-second, 20-second, 30-second videos that you have like 7 seconds to grab their attention, maybe even slightly less. So whatever you put in the first 10 seconds of that video better be good.
Well, and that was my next question is from a content standpoint, is it all video based? Do you do any image based? Do you do carousels? What are you doing?
Videos. I wouldn't do. I don't like static ads. I think
And
they're
so what's happening on your video? So obviously we know your product, and I don't want to, diminish, fences and decks, but let's just keep talking about concrete coatings. So we know what that product is. We know it's kind of a sexy product. What are you doing on the content? What does it look like?
well. It's a lot of like the grinding, profiling the garage, right? Laying the base coat, close up shots of the roller, throwing the flake out there.
So showing the
Um,
installation.
yeah, what they want to see is how it's done, right? And all of that whole process really grabs your attention because when you use those bead roll videos and footage, it really makes a big difference. Even if you're like a home show, like we have a little TV stand that we set up, it makes the people stop and look at it, right?
And then what, a voiceover telling whatever story goes with that B-roll?
Yeah, whatever the story is, maybe there's some type of ad or incentive to be able to capture their attention. We've got right now we've got I met with our marketing team, 14 different ad styles in 14 different ways that are going to be launched over the next 18 months.
Awesome. Thanks for that granular detail. That's the kind of information that this podcast listenership is really interested in. Let me ask you a couple more questions before we move on about social media. Have you done anything with Twitter/X advertising?
I can't even log into my Twitter account. I forgot the password. Um, I'm not saying that it's not something that you could do, but I, I don't know if I've ever even heard of anybody running home improvement ads on there. Not saying that you can't. I just
Okay.
not a not a platform. It seems like it's a place where celebrities go and complain about stuff. I don't know. My wife uses Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
That's where she.
on Facebook, my feed is pretty clean of just things that I'm actually interested in, and there's no politics at all in my Facebook feed. Uh, Twitter, it's like 90% political stuff. And it's crazy because it's about a 50-50 split, conservative and liberal. Like it's really weird. And it's just everybody hates everybody.
I, you know, I, I've never really concerned myself with any of it because it doesn't matter if the president's Republican or Democrat. I'm going to find a way to turn a buck. So
Well, and again, I'm just wondering if that's an advertising platform that you've tried because, like you said, it's not common in home improvement. So, what about YouTube? Have you used YouTube?
yeah. So our new CMO is really started to launch our YouTube and YouTube Shorts, and we're seeing some good results out of YouTube. Um,
Okay, so a
really,
relatively new thing for you.
yeah, we've never really got into it up until about 3 months ago, and seems like it's working pretty good. So I would recommend YouTube.
What about OTT or CTV, streaming television?
Yeah, we actually started to pull away from the main networks and go more towards OTT and CTV. It seems to be TV's hit or miss, right? No matter where you're at, and you can get yourself. We actually ran a huge experiment with TV last year to see how hard we could push it, and we found the limit of how much TV ads we can actually run. Um,
Tell me about
so
that. I'm curious.
I would say like last year was kind of like a free year for us, right? Like we're not we weren't going up for sale. We had some things that we wanted to try, and we acquired this company, Vinyl Outlet, and they spend a lot of money on TV in mid and small cap markets like Buffalo and Rochester that happen to TV just happens to work there, right? In a way that it doesn't work anywhere else in the country. Like the
Okay.
phone rings off the hook, and I don't know. I think maybe there's so much snow that they just watch TV all day. I'm not sure, but I can tell you where it doesn't work, and that's 90% of our other markets. So we did try the same way that we buy TV there. We tried that in other locations, and basically what happened is that after we hit about 12% in marketing cost, the worst part was, Rick, it was literally dollar for dollar. If I spent $1 on TV, I only got $1 back.
Okay. So you
I
hit the
didn't get that.
diminishing return pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was across the board for coatings, fence deck, kind of everything, right?
What about OTT or CTV streaming for people who aren't familiar with those terms?
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
we actually switched some of the spend this year, not some of it, a lot of it, over to streaming. Um, and I think that's had a pretty significant boost for us.
can I
And
assume?
it's way less expensive and it's slightly more targeted.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, can I assume that you guys are really diving headlong into the attribution and reporting and all of that?
Yeah, yeah, we actually have our own TV media buyer in house that's buying all of the linear TV and the OTT and CTV for us.
Yeah, we've gotten we're an agency that does about 12 or 13 million dollars a year in radio and TV spend spread across all of our clients. And we're we're switching heavy into OTT right now because the cost has come down to make it more affordable. And, we're really getting into the attribution and optimizing those campaigns against zip codes, against creatives, against publishers. And it's amazing how you can fine tune it like you just never could with regular TV.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I'm 38 years old. I don't remember the last time I turned on the 6 o'clock news. You know,
If you're
it,
38 years old, the answer is maybe when you were a kid and your parents were watching it.
well, I just don't, right? Like, if I want to watch something, like, I'm gonna probably turn on YouTube TV, right? Because the first five things on YouTube TV are going to be whatever sports I want to watch, and then if it's like Fox News or CNN, like some type of political thing on there, and then there's like one
Yeah.
more that it knows I'm interested in, right?
Okay, one more question on the social media, then we'll move on. You said that TV has worked well in a couple markets, Rochester, Buffalo, I think you said, not as well in other markets. Um, I'm going to infer from what you said earlier that you're having success across the board on Facebook and TikTok in all the markets.
Yeah. So our new CMO, he's actually got a whole chart. Vishwas does, where he has TV works good here, Facebook works good here, third party works good here, YouTube works here, and we're in so many different markets that it's like red, green, red, green. It looks like a Christmas
Yeah,
tree diagram. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of markets where TV doesn't work, where he'll spend more on social media, or he'll go more to third party, or he'll go more to YouTube or Google.
but
It's
is it a true general statement that Facebook basically works?
Yeah, I could spin up a Facebook ad today in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we'd have leads by 4 p.m.
Yeah, and TikTok even quicker, maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe by lunch.
Now, there's not a ton of guys named Vishwash, so that must be the same guy that I know who used to be with Smart Bath?
Yeah, New Bath today.
Yeah, New Bath Today. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
small world. He's
in
a cool
Cole.
guy.
Yeah, no. So I've known Bishwas for like 10 years. When we were asked to be part of the Kohler program, he was spearheading the marketing for that. We've had a great relationship for a decade, and he was working over. He actually, the Redmonds had recruited him to come work at New Bath today, and then they sold to Sage, and I think nothing against Sage, but there's nothing quite as fun as to probably work with a true founder-led business. And with the Redmonds gone, it kind of created an opportunity for me and him to reconnect on a on a on a level and different products for him. He's excited about being able to market for different products, and I can't say enough good things about him. We just have a fun time. We're
Well,
we're
my
constantly figuring stuff out every day.
my experience with him was relatively limited, certainly compared to you. It's massively limited, but yeah, super smart guy, and it sounds like you're in really good hands. That's awesome. I want to transition, if that's okay, to scaling your business. You said that TSR is probably 35 or 40 out of the 100 or a little bit more than 100 of coatings. So you've got 44 locations. How many of those 44 locations are TSR branded versus other brands? Are they all TSR?
No, no, they're not. So I think there's like 11 or 12. I'd have to look.
Okay,
Um,
so maybe a third or less. So you're definitely growing by acquisition. So you're talk about how you're growing. So you're growing by greenfield, by buying some smaller companies, buying some bigger companies. Talk about it.
yeah. So before we sold to Bertram Capital, I actually did two acquisitions on my own. I bought Legacy Concrete Coatings up in Appleton, Wisconsin, and then I bought Icon Coatings down in Evansville. We
Look
packaged
at
that.
you being all individual private equity guy.
I tried. I tried. It was a good learning experience. Not just for me, but for our entire team. I was actually, to be truthful with you, I'm glad I did that before I did the deal with the private equity firm, because it gave me some insight on how to be a platform company versus an
Hmm.
add-on company. And a lot of people think they're ready to be a platform company, and they have no idea what it takes. Once they start getting the add-ons in, they're like throw their hands up. They're like, "Oh my god, I can't handle these people."
Yeah, what did I get myself into here?
Yeah, so I did those two, and then that was I acquired one in like 20 is like 20 March of 2020. I acquired Legacy, and then of 2020, fall of 2021, I think it was, maybe, or maybe they were both in 21. I can't remember. Tarun, my CFO, has all that information, but I did those ones, and then we sold to Bertram in February of 2022. We were a $23 million collective organization at that point. And then basically we sold to Bertram on a Thursday in February. Friday, I was working another deal simultaneously with a company called Polypro in Indiana. We bought those guys the very next day after I closed my deal with Bertram. And then I bought a company called Ninja, Next Level, Apollo, Flagler. We did, I think it was 8 or 9 acquisitions in the first year with Bertram.
They were probably happy.
Yeah, yeah. I already had them all lined up. I know these guys, right? We're in the same industry, but I had them all lined up, and we were just kind of cooking through them we were doing an acquisition every 45 days.
Man.
It was pretty wild.
Now, my experience with that kind of acquisition is I work with a company called Champions Group in California that's rolled up, I think, maybe 20 brands in the HVAC industry. So obviously not as entrenched in that as you are, but taking on a new company is not nothing. I mean, there's a lot of square pegs fitting into round holes that has to happen.
Yeah, there really is. Like, we're actually, I'm shooting this podcast with you, and we did an acquisition Monday, and I actually did 2 of them Monday, and I'm the second acquisition is actually here in our headquarters for training today. So from Texas. So
What's your MO with an acquisition? You bring them on, do you kind of let them do their own thing for a period of time? Do you immediately get them up to speed on your systems? How does that work?
No, we have the law of Jeff. We don't allow that. So they immediately, day one, everything's set up and ready to go, so that they get put on Builder Prime, so that we're able to track all of their results. All of their marketing flips to us. Their HR, sales team gets put underneath our national sales manager.
Call center?
Call center comes straight back to us.
So basically, maybe not literally, but basically day one.
Yeah, they become sales and installation locations, not what they were before.
And what's your relationship with these folks? Are you bringing on the founders? Are the founders going on their own way? Or are they coming on and then, the way
Yeah,
that I've seen it a lot is like, hey, come on, reinvest a certain percentage of your, deal, and then, you can take the proverbial second bite of the apple later.
no, I really look for guys that want to stay on. A lot of these guys I've known, right, for several years. So these 2 deals that we did this year, I actually looked at these deals 3 years ago, and we turned them down because they weren't quite ready. They weren't where they needed to be. But we're finally at a point where we're like, yeah, like, let's get this done. And as we, because we're preparing for our next sale as well, right? So I just felt confident that we would be able to. Is great because yesterday Team Red from Tennessee was here, and right away this morning they had $50,000 in sales. I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about.
And
Um,
let me
yeah,
just pause on that. These are sales that were leads generated using your systems that they perhaps otherwise on their own wouldn't have had.
yeah, potentially, yeah. I would assume so because they had kind of dwindled their advertising down, and so we were generating leads. We started generating leads for them last week while they were in training this week, so that whenever they went on their own today, they would have a full schedule.
And so you completely take marketing off of their hands. This is not something they even need to concern themselves with anymore.
Yeah, we take marketing and HR away from them.
Okay.
Onboarding, all that, recruiting, we take all of that.
And
Uh,
what's
Payroll.
what's the range of size of companies you're acquiring?
So one of our smallest ones 2 years ago was actually a company that was 750,000. That one actually kind of landed me in hot water with Bertram because they're like, "Why are you wasting your time on this one?" But me and the owner Mark, we just have a great relationship, and I was like, I just want this guy on my team. I go, he's guy's awesome, you know.
So you're
And
acquiring the guy more than the company in that case.
yeah, I don't give a shit about the company. We can make a company any time we want to. I wanted the guy, right? And He was more like more on the installation side, operations, and I'd never built a fence or deck before. So I was like, this guy's been building fences and decks for 20 years. I'm like, he seems like a pretty good guy to bring on our team. And so that's kind of how that one happened. So he was 750,000 and he's up to 4.75 million in his first full year with us. So that was a big change for him. When you grow that fast and that furious, I will say he handled it like a champ. Never once complained, never said this is too much, never nothing. He was like, keep bringing it on.
So that was a small acquisition, 750. What would be more typical?
More typical in coatings would be somewhere between like 2.5 and 5 million, and then we've done some that were 10 million in revenue, and then one of our bigger fencing operations, I think they were doing vinyl outlet was like 18 million or 19 million.
Can I infer from what you just said that on the coding side, there just aren't that many companies doing 10 million and above?
No, no, not really. They really struggle to get any traction.
So if you buy a company, let's say they're doing 3 million, what would you expect that you could get them to? How long will it take you to get them to say 10 million?
Well, it depends on how many offices, right? So for coatings, I try to keep these guys per office at about 5 to 7 crews, because once they start exceeding 5 to 7 crews, chaos ensues. And so we're not trying to.
How much sales can you do on 5 to 7 crews?
So if you do 5 crews at 70, 3.5 to 5 million, that's a good size office.
Okay,
5 million.
so a $5 million office, and then you're gonna what within a given city have two offices? Is that what you're saying?
No, no. So like, Kansas City, right, is a good example. We did an acquisition for a guy there last year, and he was doing like 1.9, and we're going to build him up to 5, and then we're probably going to kind of hold him right at 5, and then we're going to say, hey, let's go to Topeka, let's go to Wichita, let's go to, you know, let,
But you don't
and
feel like in Kansas, I mean, Kansas City is a pretty big town. You don't think there's $10 million worth of business there?
no, there probably is, but again, we want low overhead, low maintenance, low problems, right? So we absolutely could. Like, he's probably in his first 2 or 3 years, he's probably going to hit 7 or 8 crews just because it's going so well there for him.
Okay. And then talking about greenfields,
Yeah. So then what we do is we look for a location that's like 2 to 3 hours away from. If you look at us on a map, we kind of are like a spider web, right? And so it's really important to me and to our team that every time we add a location, we stay within 2 to 3 hours of each other. And I don't really, I don't like markets like Atlanta, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York City. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for places like Indianapolis, Green Bay, Des Moines. We're looking for those type of markets versus the really big ones.
how many how many more markets have you identified that you feel like you could expand into via acquisition or greenfield?
Probably at least 25. We don't have really hardly anything west of the Mississippi. You know, we don't. We're Washington and Oregon are would be great states. For our what we do, and even for the fence and deck side too. So
They should come out here to Utah where I am. People love their garages and their toys.
yeah, no, are you in like Salt Lake City? Is that where you're at, or where?
I'm south of there, but yeah, it's connected.
Yeah, that would actually be a good location for us. I we could go anywhere, right? It really just is like like where's our infrastructure at a certain point. We've grown in 3 years, Rick. We've grown from 23 million to 158 million, and um, you know, it's funny. I actually commented. The guy was like, "Well, wasn't it really hard to go from 2 to 5 million?" I go, "No, that wasn't hard." I go, 50 to 80 million. That's how I got all this gray hair. That's where it all came from,
Is
because
that a
we were
function of systems?
we were breaking everything. We were breaking. We didn't have Builder Prime at the time. I think we were using Market Sharp. It was just wasn't doing what we needed it to do. We were on Ring Central for our call center. That wasn't working. everything we were driving so much bandwidth through everything that we were using that all the systems and processes were failing, and so we retooled and restructured, and now we feel like we're built for 250 million.
So what's the future hold for you?
Well, I got another sale, right? We're preparing for that. I'm looking, my goal is to I'd like to see before I retire, that 500 million mark. Um,
Yeah,
we
but
ran
guys like you get to 500 million and then you're like, well, we're halfway to a billion, and that's a interesting number.
well, so last year we went from, 108 to 158. So it was what you find is that the growth number happens pretty quick. When you start adding a 30 to 35% yearly growth at a couple $100 million, it doesn't take much to get to 250 to 350 to 500,
Yeah.
right? It's really just becomes a function of basic algebra. And then I don't know. I mean, yeah, 500 to a billion. I'm 38. I was the youngest home improvement guy in all of the circles for a long time, and I'm not anymore.
Now you're just a guy.
I'm just a guy. I'm just a middle-aged.
Pretty soon you'll be an old guy. I mean, it goes quick, man. Enjoy
I
it.
I know. So I'm not the young guy anymore, but I would like to see 500 million before they walk me out of here someday, and in my walker. And I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. There's a lot of things that can happen. I'm really focused on building our fence and deck operation. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Who have been some of your mentors specifically in the realm of scaling?
Um, there really hasn't been a lot of like personal mentors when it comes to that, because
People
I
you
don't.
follow?
Yeah, so like
Anybody?
I watch Chris Cunahan and Leaf all the time. I got to tell you, I hope Chris watches this. Chris broke my heart. Chris was supposed to be, one of the guys. Leaf was supposed to acquire us. That was actually my dream goal, because we both came from Erie, and he they Leaf passed on us and they bought Dunderland. So it really hit me right in the feels when that happened. And so I think I kind of have a chip on my shoulder, a little bit from that. But I did get a good education when I was with Erie about how they set up their locations and kind of how they do it. So you get to watch from afar, places like Erie and places like Leaf and even Leaf Guard, kind of how they've done it, whether you've had like personal contact with those guys or not. And you just watch, because there is not a tremendous amount of examples of companies who have 30 plus locations, right?
Yeah.
And so it hasn't been easy to do that. Now I do have other mentors in the business. My old business partner Chris Bowling, he actually still works with us here and there. He works 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months he plays golf in Florida or whatever it is he's doing. Alan Erskine from Elanco and his son John, I always lean on those guys when I've got a really important question or things like that. So I think that it's a little bit tough in a sense that we're kind of doing something and we're also doing it with products that other guys aren't doing it in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I don't have a tremendous amount of people that I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? They're like, I have no idea. What do you want me to do?
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you spending some time with me today. I know you got a lot on your plate, training all these new companies and acquiring, trying to get to 500 million. Let's put some bets down. 2028, you'll hit 500 million.
2028 years. Yeah, I
That
let's do
feels about right.
it. Hey, I'm sure the next private equity firm will watch this and be like, yeah, that's the number. That's the guy, right?
That's the
Yeah.
guy. Okay. Well, hey,
There's
Jeff, thanks a lot, man. I look forward to meeting you in person at some of these events that come up, and we'll talk to you then, maybe sooner. Who knows?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.